Welcome to the D-VELO-P Cycling Training Podcast, where we untangle the complexities of peak performance in cycling. And here is the dorky coaching duo who will be your hosts.
Okay, welcome to a new episode of our podcast.
Welcome.
And today we have a topic that we have been quite interested in for a bit of time now.
Yeah, a couple of years at least.
At least. I remember I stumbled upon it, I think almost around 20 years ago. And I know I did a deep dive in this concept when I did my master's thesis in 2008. And that is the critical power concept.
Yeah, and today we're gonna talk a bit about how to use critical power to guide your training instead of using the more common functional threshold power, FTP, that most of you normally uses, I believe.
Yeah, the FTP is quite common, or even just like the basic threshold lactate, or just calling something a threshold, which usually has some kind of physiological anchor point, be it lactate or ventilation or things like that. But the critical power concept is a little bit the same thing as the threshold, so to speak, but something that is, I would say, even more functional than the so-called functional threshold power, because it only uses your power output to calculate at what power you can keep stable for quite some time, just like the FTP.
Yes.
And if you want to know a little bit more of the critical power concept, it was drawn up back in the 1960s by two scientists. I can't remember their first names, but I think their last names is Monod and Scherer. And they discovered that there was a linear relationship between the amount of energy you could expend and how long duration a work was. So if you looked at how much energy you could expend for like 2 minutes, and then for 6 minutes, and then 12 minutes, and then 18 minutes, something like that, it was a linear relationship with these with the amount of energy that you could expire or expand. But the curve or the line didn't cross the 0 point when you went back to zero. It crossed a little bit over, meaning there was one fixed amount of energy that was the same for all these durations. And so the line has a linear component, and the slope of that line is, it tells you that there is something in the human body that can create energy kind of indefinitely at a certain maximal rate, and then there is a fixed amount of energy above that can be used for either for 2 minutes, or it's expended the same amount of energy that is expended or like spread out over 2 minutes or 6 minutes or 12 and so on. And if you want to go into the more known terms, aerobic and anaerobic, the highest aerobic power output or energy turnover rate that you can achieve is the slope of this line, and that fixed amount of energy that seems to be spread out over any of these durations is your anaerobic capacity. So with this concept, you get a really good view or picture of a person's capacity when it comes to aerobic work, and how big the anaerobic part of the equation is as well.
Yeah, and to get that into some kind of metaphor so that it maybe gets a little easier to understand is, and we will use a sauna as an example because, you will know we are kind of enthusiastic about heat training. And to be able to sit in the sauna on different places, and I can start over. Being outside of the sauna, that's where you can be there indefinitely all the time, and you don't get affected by the heat, or the what can you say? Yeah, you don't get affected by the heat. But as soon as you step inside the sauna and sit by the door, the heat will drain you, but it will drain you slowly. And if you sit higher and higher in the sauna, you will have to get out faster and faster, and not be able to sit at the top step in the sauna as long as you can sit on the middle step or the low step or by the door. And that's kind of the same thing as with the critical power. And as soon as you go above the critical power, you can't be there indefinitely. And as higher above the critical power you get, the shorter amount of time you can spend there.
Yeah, exactly, and that is due to the fixed amount of energy that you have to expend over critical power. That is your energy, anaerobic energy budget, which is termed W prime for cycling. W being wattage and prime, and the same concept works for running. Wattage is usually used in cycling and maybe in rowing, athlete ergometer rowing. In running, it's more connected to speed. So you say the D prime, which stands for the distance you can travel above your critical speed.
Yeah,
and as with your sauna metaphor, if you just cross the threshold, you cross the critical power threshold entering the sauna. If you sit by the door, you're gonna be able to spread that W prime, that fixed amount of energy, over maybe 30 minutes, something like that, sitting by the door in the sauna. But if you hop up a step, like you said, then you're gonna be spending that budget in a quicker time. And if you sit at this top step, or maybe even pour some water over the heater in the sauna, making a lot of the water evaporation, then it's going to be even hotter, and then you're going to shorten your time, and you're going to be spending your W prime, your anaerobic budget, in a shorter period of time. Just the same as if your critical power is, say, 300 watts, riding at 301 watts, you're going to be riding for 30 minutes. But if you go at 330, then you might be down to 10 minutes. And if you start sprinting at 600, then you're probably going to be tired after about 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And this is quite useful, using the critical power instead of, for example, the FTP or similar kind of thresholds. I think it's a better way to make power zones, because you take also the anaerobic component. The same athlete could produce two athletes could produce the same wattage for like 20 minutes, but one has a lower critical power and a higher W prime, and one has the reverse, a higher critical power and a smaller W prime, and they end up at the same wattage after 20 minutes. And 20 minutes is the most used test to calculate FTP, and you can get quite wrong your intensity zones. With critical power, on the other hand, then you get a value that's more representative for this individual.
Yeah, and with the critical power testing, you can also see at what times you can hold certain amount of power. So if you do the critical power test, you can calculate, okay, if one climb is 8 minutes and 14 seconds, what amount of watts can I produce for theoretically for 8 minutes and 14 seconds? And you can be quite right about that with that calculation.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you know your critical power and how big your anaerobic budget above that is, then you can calculate your performance on any point on that curve, be it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on minutes, quite accurately, like you said.
Yeah, and as well, how fast your anaerobic work capacity is recharging as well, because it recharges differently depending on how far below your critical power is. If you go just below, if you said you had a critical power on 300 watts, if you go down to 290 watts, it recharges pretty slow. But if you start freewheeling and have 0 watts on a descent maybe, then it recharges quite quickly compared to if you spend your time a bit under critical power.
Yeah, that whole flux between being over and then under your critical power is very useful kind of analogy for explaining how to tactically and technically tackle different types of courses, and also explains quite a lot what type of rider you are. If you're the type of rider who has a high critical power or a high W prime, or preferably both, of course, and also and how fast you recharge it.
Yeah.
So it's really a useful concept in many ways to guide training, both like training zones wise and what type of rider you are, and to see if your critical power is going up and your W prime is going down. You have to, of course, see, okay, is this beneficial for my type of racing, or vice versa? Is my critical power not developing it like I wanted to, but my W prime is? Well, then probably you're doing too much anaerobic style training.
Yeah, and to be fair, you can't always use critical power because it lowers with fatigue as well. So if you are doing a long ride or a long race, like road racing or cross-country marathon, you can't really expect to have the same critical power after you expended 2,500, 3,000 kilojoules of energy. So that's probably what most people call today fatigue resistance, or resistance to what do you say? Yeah, fatigue resistance.
Durability, I think, is a popular term for this.
Exactly. So it can be a good idea to test your critical power after you expended 2,500 or 3,000 kilojoules as well, to be to see, okay, how much is my performance, how much lower is my performance? Is it 5% or 10% or maybe 20%? And if it's differs a lot, maybe you have to work on that durability as well, especially if you're targeting longer races.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a characteristic that is highly relevant to longer races, be it cross-country marathons in mountain biking, or of course road cycling, where a lot of the decisions of who is going to be on the top spot of the podium and who is going to finish on in the bunch is decided far into the race. A big disclaimer, though, I think is warranted when it comes to critical power testing, is that it is quite taxing to do these kind of tests. So I would not advise doing it too often, and doing them at the end of a longer ride to look at your durability is probably even more mentally fatiguing, because it's pretty tough stuff, but very useful if you do it in the right context.
Yeah, it's a necessary good.
if it increases performance, it's always nice.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna do another podcast about critical power and dive into some other aspects of it. Is there anything else we need to dive into in this episode, or shall we leave everybody with a cliffhanger that this will be continued?
I think we can leave them with this cliffhanger because we're gonna dive more into the critical power testing as well in a later episode. I think even next week, so you don't have to wait too long.
Maybe.
Well, we can see.
Time will tell.
Exactly.
All right. I think that's a wrap, and it's been, as always, fun chatting with you over these things that we care so deeply about.
Yeah, it was fun to discuss this, and we will say that we have this in a written format as well on a blog. So if you don't want to hear us talk for 15 minutes about critical power, you can read our text about it. Maybe you will understand things differently. There's a couple of graphs and pictures there as well, as you can see.
Preferably people do both.
Yeah, do both. And and share.
Of course. Well, that's it. Till next time.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.